Well, you hear him every morning right here on KCMO at 7:15 with the morning update. You hear him at 8 p.m. with the No Spin News. You can find him at BillO'Reilly.com. You can subscribe on YouTube. And he has got his next book, Confronting Evil, coming out on September 9th, assessing the worst of the worst. Here he is, Bill O'Reilly on KCMO. Good morning, Bill. It's great to have you back. How's everything going?
Yeah, you're getting me on my last day of work before vacation. I'm tottering here a little bit.
Man.
Yeah, I'm ready to go, but if I make some mistakes, it's because I'm delirious.
Vacation brain is setting in. Well, Bill, we know we're going to get your best this morning. Let me just ask you this. We'll start off with Putin. You obviously have researched him extensively for the upcoming book. What is motivating Vladimir Putin right now as these talks with Ukraine continue to progress?
Evil is motivating him. He doesn't care about anything other than this fantasy that he is Joseph Stalin light, and he will put together the Soviet Union greater than it was before it collapsed. And that's his vision. He's megalomaniacal, vanity, doesn't care about consequences right now because he doesn't feel that his own life is in danger. And I think he's mentally ill. And the big story that only I have, and this sounds like braggadocio, but it's absolutely true if you research it, I'm the only one that has mentioned the change in Putin. Because we researched Putin after Donald Trump left office in 2021. That's when we started to consider writing the book about evil. And in the first 4 years, Trump could reason with Putin. They had a partnership somewhat to accomplish things that would help the USA and Russia. And so Trump, I'm not going to say he liked Putin, but he believed that he could forge deals with him. And that's what he campaigned on, Trump did. I'll solve this war on day one, because he had been successful in neutralizing Putin the first 4 years. Well, Putin's not the same man. He's not. He's way worse and way more unpredictable and violent than he was. And so Trump gets in and finds that out. Now, this is not unusual. When you read, and I hope everybody will pre-order Confronting Evil, you can do it on BillO'Reilly.com. We'll give you a fun gift if you do it, or Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You know the drill. But if you look at these people who obtain unlimited power, most of them go crazy. Hitler certainly did. And Stalin at the end of his life was ridiculous. He was bad throughout. So when you give somebody no restraints and they have, this kind of authority, they lose their minds. And it's all like we give you Caligula, Genghis Khan, Henry VIII. We go through it. They're all mentally ill. It's really stunning. And that's what you're dealing with now. The world is dealing with, America is dealing with a mentally ill, violent psychopath. Boy, that's a tough one.
So if you're President Trump, he's obviously got a lot of time and effort and in some ways some of his legacy tied up in this right now. What is the play going forward as he tries to figure out what a peace deal looks like?
The only way that Putin is going to stop murdering innocent civilians is if Putin himself believes that his life is in danger. It's like the Iranian mullahs. The only reason they stopped not only their nuclear program but funding terrorism was because the mullahs themselves said, we're next. Mossad and the CIA are going to come after and they're going to kill us, which is absolutely, their analysis was true. Mm-hmm. And so they stopped because they didn't want to die. Now, Putin doesn't believe at this point in history that NATO or the United States is going to directly be able to kill him. But his own people will if they're starving. And you can starve them out by onerous sanctions on anybody that does financial transactions with Moscow, any bank. And that includes Chinese banks. And that's where it gets really rough, too, because Trump needs a deal with China. And if he starts to punish China because of Putin, that deal is going to be harder to get. So you can see how complicated and awful this is. But Trump's going to have to really punish Putin economically. He's going to have to really do that. No question in my mind that's coming.
So do you think this whole song and dance with a potential meeting with Zelenskyy is just Putin buying time for himself to delay the inevitable on these economic sanctions, or is there something else motivating that?
Well, Putin likes all this. That's number one. This is amusing for him to be the powerful guy that, is meeting the president of the United States or whatever. This is what dictators, evil dictators, they want. They love power. It's their whole life. And so he loves this. So there's no downside for him meeting with anybody, but that doesn't mean he's going to do anything positive.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, EU and the USA are hoping that finally he will do something positive, but hope is not a strategy. But I don't object to President Trump giving Putin as much rope as possible if they're getting some kind of signal that Putin may reconsider. And that might be true. I don't know. I'm not privy to that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's coming to a head, as the cliche goes.
Yeah. Bill O'Reilly's here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So you mentioned the China angle, Bill. It seemed like in his first term, the president wanted to decouple Russia from China as much as he could to basically isolate the Chinese. But what's the better play right now? Try to get this deal with China and basically get them away from Russia, or still try to work with Putin and say, hey, get out of business with China and let's try to work something out here between us? What's the smart play right now of those options?
Well, before I give you my answer, because we talked about it on KCMO, that I did go to China in May, and I did meet with the Chinese government for 3 hours about these topics. So it is clear to me, and I do believe President Trump concurs, that China is the more powerful country and can be persuaded to do the right thing, whereas Putin, we don't know whether he can be persuaded. The evidence is he cannot be. So that if it were me, I would be tilting to China, and I would be saying, look, get out of the Putin business. We'll reward you if you do that with oil and increased trade, and your country will benefit economically, China, if you help us contain this madman. Because I know for a fact that at one point Putin was thinking about using tactical nuclear weapons, and he would do that. He would use them. And China was the one that stopped him. So China is certainly a much more positive way to go in trying to get them to cooperate with the United States than Russia at this point in history.
Bill, I want to ask you, too, you wrote about this on your message of the day yesterday, the destruction of MSNBC. Of course, they have given up that moniker, MSNBC. They're no longer called MSNBC. And, you and I, when you were kind enough to have me over and we were on the beach at your beautiful home and you had all the television ratings in front of you and you look at them every day and you're like, this industry right now is an absolute utter mess. What's the story here behind the MSNBC change that is being overlooked by many?
Well, 1996, July, MSNBC came on the air, and it was totally funded by Comcast NBC. Okay, so it is basically another company within that giant corporate umbrella. And then they believed that it could compete with CNN. There was no Fox News until October of that year, 1996. So it started out like a regular news operation. And they used heavily the resources of NBC News, their correspondents, their videotape all over the world. It didn't work. They didn't get anybody to watch them and couldn't make as much money as they wanted to make. And then Fox came on and blew them out of the water as far as ratings were concerned. That's me. So then they turned sharply left into the progressive area, and no discipline, no truth standard whatsoever, a bunch of loons, in my opinion, not all of them, but a lot of them. And then NBC, over that 30-year period, became embarrassed, and they weren't making much money. And so they said, we don't need this anymore, and they let them go. And now they're an independent company, MS Now. But they're done. They never got ratings under that giant NBC corporate umbrella. They never got high ratings. And what do you think? Now people are going to go in and watch that propaganda every night? Look, it comes down to this. You have to be really, really a troubled person to want to watch your country demeaned every single night. And that's what they do at MSNBC.
But
That's
somehow it justifies, these Rachel Maddow salaries reported at $25 million. How do they justify some of that, Bill, based on what you're talking about there over the last 2 minutes?
Well, most of the salaries at MSNBC are not high. Maddow struck some kind of deal, and I don't know what it is. And you have to remember that when these people announce the deals, they're not true usually. The agents pump them up.
Gotcha.
Because that's better for the agent. Oh, look, I got Patrick Mahomes $90 gazillion, so all you football players sign with me, and I'll get you the same thing. That's what agents do. So you can't believe, what they're saying Ms. Maddow is making, but she is by far the highest paid person. And that's to her credit. She engineered a good financial deal for herself. That's capitalism. Mm-hmm. Okay? She works 1 day a week. For all that money. So whoever signed that deal at Comcast should have been fired immediately because you're an idiot. Yeah. You're just throwing money away. She's not helping you. Her threshold is 2 million people. You got 2 million really hardcore radical leftists that will come in and watch her on a Monday night. That's all. That's it. And then she doesn't contribute anything else to the corporation. So she's never going to get a duplicate of that contract in a million years from anybody.
That's a good point.
But the reason that the whole thing fell apart was they used to have a morning program that had some viewership, not much, with Joe and Mika. And then Joe and Mika, after Trump won, went over to have a little tete-a-tete with him, and the radical left went nuts. And that crushed their ratings. Till to this day, they have not forgiven Joe and Mika with dining with the devil. So that shows you how extreme this whole MS outfit is. It is really, in a free society, about as far left into propaganda as you could possibly go.
Bill, I don't want to give you more work, but I think I got your next book, Killing Television News When Confronting
Nobody
Evil.
Nobody cares, though, Pete. That's the thing. They don't care. It's over.
Yeah.
It's over. And because my operation is very successful. Mm-hmm. And it's an independent operation, and it's internet-driven.
Yeah.
We don't have a corporate master telling us what to do. We distribute our own product, not only to television, but to radio and all over the place by ourselves. We've set up our own apparatus to get information out. And that's the future. Because people don't trust CBS, even Fox. They don't trust. Newsmax had to pay, $70 million billion this year and for misreporting a story? Mm-hmm. And whether you're a conservative or a liberal or whatever, if you're trusting these big corporations, you're crazy. They're not in business to give you the truth at all. It's not even close. So most intelligent Americans understand that, and they're now going over to the independents that demonstrate some kind of credibility.
And that's why BillO'Reilly.com continues to thrive. Also subscribe to Bill O'Reilly on YouTube. The channel is doing very well. You hear him every night at 8 p.m. here on KCMO and in the mornings with the morning update at 7:15. Confronting Evil. Pre-order it now. Bill's next appearance is in mid-September. And, Bill, you brought the A game as always. We look forward to talking more about the book next month. Enjoy that well-deserved vacation. Hopefully it involves plenty of beach time. Thanks so much.
All right, Pete. Thanks for having me, as always. Appreciate it.
You bet. Bill O'Reilly, great to have him on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.